Hi, everybody. I'm Kate with Glazers. We're just going to chat for just a second before we get going. We're still anticipating some more people to sign in. So if you can, during the session, please keep your mics muted. If you have questions, please ask those in the chat room. One thing real quick.
You muted yourself, Kate.
I know I'm talking to Devin. I'll be right back.
And then I'm Luke. I'll be presenting, and Wendy, my very helpful assistant, will also be helping a little bit. But
I think I've met you at Creative Mornings.
Oh, wonderful! Yeah, that's great. Nice to see you again. If you're at a place where you can enable your camera, I would actually really appreciate it because it makes the presentation a bit more real to see humans. If not, I understand, but it just. I think anything we can do in this time to try and recreate a reality, I appreciate. So if you can enable your video, I would appreciate it.
Let me know if things look weird. So, all right. Trying to get this one guy to come in. Okay. All right. I'm just going to give it another minute or so because I think we might have a couple more people sign in. How's everybody doing? Hopefully everybody's doing well and navigating this crazy time. Devin says, hi, John.
Hello.
Just come crash it already, Devin. Yeah, so as I mentioned before, if everybody can just keep their mics muted during this, that's just going to help the process go a little bit more smoothly. And there is a chat room available, so you can post any questions you have along the way in that chat room. We won't be asking every single question immediately. We're going to kind of go through and ask the questions that are on point, and then have a little bit of Q&A towards the end. And anyhow, this should be interesting conversation. It's a weird time we are in right now. So, all right, I'm sure we're probably going to have some people coming in, but I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. So, hi everyone. My name is Kate. I work with Glazers. I do all the events here for the store. And for today, I'll be your hostess as we talk about applying for Washington unemployment as a freelancer. So historically, this is not something we've ever been able to do before. I'm also a freelance photographer. And so it's been a trying time for sure for me, and I'm sure for all of you. So just a couple of things about Glazers and how we're operating, and then we're going to kick this off. Glazers is open. We are open Monday through Friday right now from 9 to 5 for curbside pickup. So that means you can place your orders online or on the phone and just swing by and we'll bring it right out to your car. Glazers is taking lots of measures to make sure that we are operating as clean as we possibly can. We also have our website, which is open 24/7. So if there's things you want to order and just have them shipped to you, that is also an option. We're trying to do these programs throughout the week to provide you guys technique and inspiration and assistance as we kind of navigate this crazy time that we're living in right now. So thank you for everyone who's tuned in, and we're so grateful for everyone in the community who has participated in these so far. So with all that said, I'm going to introduce Luke Frye. He is a CPA. Is that correct, Luke?
I am.
Look, I know things. He is owner of Timber Tax Co., a Pacific Northwest business. And he is going to talk to us about applying for unemployment. If you are also in the market for someone to do your financials and help you with your taxes, this is your guy in our market. So we're definitely in a time where supporting local businesses is super important. So he's gracious enough to be here with us today. And so we are super thankful for your time, Luke. We also have Wendy on the line who works with Luke and will be answering questions and talking on camera as well about some of the information that she's also gathered during this time. So with that said, I'm going to kick it off over to Luke, and Luke is going to talk a bunch and we're going to ask questions. So just a reminder,
Awesome.
keep your mics muted and ask your questions in the chat room. Okay?
Wonderful.
So
you can see my screen right now, the presentation, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And I won't be checking the chat, but Kate will, thankfully, so I really appreciate that. Happy to get to your questions as they come up. The thing is, there's a chance that your question will be very specific in your situation. I won't know the answer. The reality is that a lot of this is new for me as well as it is for you, because we're in a situation we've never been in before. So a little bit about me. I am a Washington CPA and co-founder of timbertax.co. And so if you want more information about us, you can go to our website, timbertax.co. I also had worked at bench.co, which is a wonderful bookkeeping option if you're looking for one. So we really are working with people who have their own businesses, entrepreneurs, and are really underserved. So what that means is we're not just trying to do compliance, right? So compliance means filing a form. We're trying to actually help you plan and do advice and working with you throughout the year. One of these things that has come up recently is this pandemic that we had no idea was going to happen with any of our clients last year. And yet clients we were working with, we now were able to help them apply for all sorts of things, including unemployment as well as the Payroll Protection Program loan. So you can think of us as tax advisors more than just tax accountants. And that's Anne, my business partner, Anne Chan. She's in Seattle. So again, this is general advice. If you have specific questions, I'm happy to receive emails. Unfortunately, any of the hyper-specific questions might have to be directed to Washington Employment Security, but we'll see if we can at least get you from what you know today to knowing a bit more, and I would call that a success as far as where to go and how to get more help. Wonderful. So yeah, we are in an interesting time that as a gig worker economy, you've experienced this in a very different way than anyone else probably has. And so there thankfully have been a number of things that come out to help support you, including the $1,200 stimulus check per person, or about that. So hopefully you've received that already. And if you need help, we've been helping people access those. Certainly the Payroll Protection Program, the EIDL program. But what CARES also did is it extended the eligibility for self-employed people to also qualify for unemployment. So ordinarily, you would not have been eligible for unemployment, okay? So that means you now know you can. Hopefully, if you didn't know that before, you know that. And you'll receive at least $600 a week from March through July. Some of this stuff we have listed out here, and then we have other forms and documents we can go through at the end. I'll try to save at least 15 minutes at the end to go through additional information if we have questions or want to just review things together.
So Luke, John is asking, does that include S-Corp people?
S-Corp people, yeah, it should include S-Corp people. And so then what you need to do is stop paying yourself a payroll. So that's how that number is going to be calculated. You know, in any of this stuff, one of the primary overriding factors is need. You do have to prove that you had some sort of a need. So I've seen quite a few people, for example, on the payroll protection who get approved, but maybe they didn't need. So in your situation as an S-Corp, if you're not working with somebody to actively manage your salary, I highly recommend that. That's something that we do. And what that means is, you know, we probably would look at what is your profit right now and what is the money you're taking out. And then if you aren't making any money right now, we say, okay, it's reasonable not to pay yourself any salary. And then you register for unemployment that way. Wendy, I don't think we've helped any of our clients who are S-Corps
We have not
register.
Yet.
Yeah. I know we have one who was going to have her. That's a reminder of somebody to follow up with.
Yes.
Awesome. So there is a fair amount of info out on the state's website. So the department that we're talking about is Employment Security, the Employment Security Department. And they have this link here to this YouTube video that I watched earlier today, and it talks you through how to create a SAW account. If you don't know what a SAW account is, it's Secure Access Washington, acronym SAW, and that is the login that you're going to use for most things with the state. Okay, so if you have Department of Revenue, Secretary of State, other types of accounts, even with my CPA license, that's when I had originally set up my Secure Access Washington account, was for my CPA license. You can think of it almost like using your Facebook account or your Google account to log into all these other services. So if you don't already have one or you're not sure, I would go to that YouTube link, and we'll make sure that we're posting that out there. If Wendy hasn't already, she can send that link in the chat, and that will walk you through step-by-step how to create an account. So first step, create a Secure Access Washington account. And then we'll also link out these unemployment benefits guide for you as well. And once you have that account, then you're able to go into the ESD and start your application. So this is what it looks like for the Secure Access Washington account when you're setting everything up. Some pretty basic stuff, I would say. The key is that you're going to have to verify your identity, and it needs to match your Social Security card. So whatever is listed on your Social Security card is what we should be using. Mailing addresses, especially if you've moved, that can cause issues. Birthday and Social Security, hopefully that's not something that is troublesome for you. Just be very thorough. The reality is, because this is such a high demand right now, the advice that I can give you if you get stuck is to call the state. And I haven't spoken to anybody who successfully got through yet. I don't know if Wendy has heard of anybody calling and getting through, but the key is at least avoid the very obvious mistakes of entering dates of birth and Social Security numbers wrong. So make sure that you're doing this when you're trying to be as relaxed as you can and you have the documents and you're double checking everything.
Luke, can I ask a quick question, a couple of quick questions?
Sure.
One person asked early on, they were living in Washington State, but in January moved to Portland. That would mean they would need to file in Oregon since they're, or do you know?
I don't know, but probably.
Okay.
The reality, yeah, that might depend more on their specific situation, if they have other income that was reported to Washington or if they started anything in Oregon.
Okay.
But I would say you're in this situation, you're probably safe to receive benefits from either state. Just make sure you're not receiving from both states.
Yeah, that could probably get you into trouble.
So if you have a Washington account already, try maybe there. And the key with any of this stuff is, because I think there are so many ways to make mistakes, and there's so many ways to get yourself in trouble, actually. Just make sure that you're never lying, you know. And so if there's a question that's unclear, you have to make your best guess, but don't ever lie. And then that's going to make sure, it sounds like a dumb thing to say, but just make sure that you're providing the best, most reasonable information that you have.
Just to let people know, Wendy is dropping some links when Luke is talking about different things into the chat room. So if you want to know where to do the things that he's talking about, make sure you grab those links and save them so you have them to get through this process. I'm going to ask this and you guys can tell me, but one person's asking if their business hasn't been profitable for maybe a couple of years. Should they still apply?
The key for applying for any of this stuff is if you have been negatively impacted, like you lost income because of COVID. That's the purpose of this, is to help support you through the pandemic and lost revenue through the pandemic, or economic uncertainty.
Okay.
When we talk about profit, that's a little bit of a black box, depending on what type of entity you're on. And then also, if you're counting your owner draws and your taxes. So if you're unprofitable, I'm assuming you have another job then. And I might look at it more from that angle.
Okay. All right, let's keep going. Thank you.
Okay, so some questions. I think I had something else I was going to say about SAW, Secure Access Washington login. Oh, the help desk. When you're trying to at least cut down your wait time on some of this stuff, make sure you're trying to contact the Secure Access Washington help desk directly if you're having trouble logging into that and creating that username, rather than calling employment security. So if Wendy hasn't already, I think she'll pop in some sort of contact info there. Okay, so if you've used e-services or unemployment benefits before, just use the one that you know is correct. And if you don't, then you have to call the help desk. And then if you forgot your username or password, there's some instructions on how to do that. Again, some of the answers are just going to be call the help desk. This is a good time to mention highly recommended software for saving passwords. I use is 1Password, the number 1Password by AgileBits. LastPass is also a great option. Just the more you have a system set up and the more on top of this stuff that you can be moving forward, the better. And I don't say any of that stuff with judgment, because I know that we all have different issues with being behind on certain things, but people who have a bookkeeper, people who have their tax return done, all of those people are positioned in a better situation to apply for any of this stuff, just because they have more access to their records. So, if you don't have a password manager, I highly recommend that you get one. LastPass or 1Password is something that I would recommend. Okay, so more about how to apply for the regular unemployment benefits. There are 2 stages to this, because this is a new system. You have to apply for unemployment as a regular person first, and then you get into the pandemic unemployment assistance. So you have to apply on the regular system, get declined, and that means you're like halfway there basically, and then you start applying under the pandemic unemployment. So applying for the regular unemployment, like I just mentioned, you need to be denied, and then that should be clear in your user account. And then this is because the state is required to verify that you're not eligible. And I'm assuming that probably has to do with the fact that the money's going to come from different places. So the CARES Act is funding the unemployment for self-employed people, whereas Employment Security is a state-run agency for unemployment. So this is actually a really good point that we referenced slightly on running a business that's not profitable. So the net earnings is after expenses. Okay, and I'm going to talk specifically to single member LLCs who are not S corporations and sole proprietors right now. That means before you pay yourself. Okay, so it's all of your sales revenue of actual cash in, and then less all of your expenses, and then what's remaining before you pay yourself is your net income, and also before you pay your taxes. So any questions about net income, profit, net earnings? Okay, cool. So it is possible, right, as you're filling out these weekly claims, there might be a week where you made some money and then your claim with the state will go down, but then the following week you didn't make any money and then your support goes back up. Okay, so as we mentioned, first step, be denied for regular unemployment. When you're denied, then you're gonna see this other option in your account. And this is a situation that many of our clients have gotten themselves into, where they applied, and then they were somehow ineligible or denied for another reason, but then this option didn't pop up. And so the goal is to see this screenshot, apply for a COVID PUA, Pandemic Unemployment Assistance claim. So if you see that claim, then you're on the right path. If not, you're probably going to have to call employment security to find out why that didn't pop up.
So I'm just going to ask real quick. A couple of people have mentioned to me that there's a way to set up an email or email them to get them to call you. Have you guys figured that out yet? You know where that mysterious email form or address lies?
I have not heard of that
Yeah,
being an option for this. So
whoever has that, can you post that in the chat?
yeah.
Yeah, well, no, it's just like, it's one of those things like, oh, I heard from a friend of a friend, and I was like, okay, but what's the thing? Like, where's that magic? How do we make that happen? So, okay. So we might not be here yet, and you can tell me, we can push this later. The form asks for hours worked, but we get paid by the job. So is that where coming up, do you kind of break that down by how much time you put in, or, because that could skew what the hourly rate might be, right?
Right, and that's on the weekly submission.
Yeah. Do we want to hold that for a little bit later?
Wendy, do you have a quick answer on that?
I don't. I know we're touching on that here in a little bit. And what you'll see is that, yes, go ahead and put that in, and it does not deny you. You know, it just, they'll figure that number, what you receive based on what you brought in.
Okay, but I know that the forms are asking for how many hours you worked, and they want to know like basically what your hourly rate is, because that's how they determine what the amount would be that you would receive. So when you're doing jobs where technically your hourly rate could be fairly high, do you just kind of work out the math for how much time you spent versus, I mean, how do we calculate that, I guess?
I think the hours worked will be separate from the rate. So I think if you're actually working that week, then put in the number of hours you worked.
Mm-hmm.
And then the actual amount of money that you generated that week.
Okay.
Not generated, received.
Right.
Yeah.
It's confusing.
Okay, so on pandemic unemployment assistance application, a lot of the same questions, and try to answer them all the same way. It looks like you will need your tax return or 1099s. You have to have some way to prove your income. So if you don't already have those, certainly 1099s, if you're working for companies, will be the best. Otherwise, if you don't have your tax return, try to get that done. If you don't have 1099s or tax returns, they might accept, bank statements or paid invoices, that sort of a thing, some sort of payment records. The burden of proof in all of these situations is on you. Same for if you're audited by the IRS, you're the one who's required to provide proof that you have actually had a business meal. So that's why we save receipts for those sorts of things. So then once your application for the POUA is submitted, you'll be notified of the amount based on your normal income. So that's what you had before. You should automatically receive an additional $600. And that's additional from what the state would qualify you for. So I think that's around 700 something. So your weekly should be around 1,300. And one thing I don't think that we have on this presentation is if you're asked a question about withholding, make sure that you choose to have the state withhold tax. So that way they are collecting the tax for you on it, because otherwise you're going to get all this unemployment and then owe tax on it too, which is kind of an odd situation to be in, to receive money from the government that's going to be taxed. But just remember, when you get to the question about asking whether to withhold, choose yes, withhold tax. So it can take up to 3 weeks in order for you to start receiving money. I've also heard people get approved in money like almost instantly. So if you fit cleanly enough in their boxes and answer everything right, you can get money rather quickly. The other key to remember is it's not as much of a use it or lose it or like it's running out hurry type of a thing, because you can apply for it retroactively. So if there's weeks that you weren't working or making any money, then you should be able to go into that week, report that lost income, and then receive that benefit.
So a couple of quick questions on, one person's gone through the eligibility and we're told that they would receive $0 a week. Would they still get the $600, the stimulus package money? Have you had that happen before? Do you have any insight on whether they would get that additional money, even if they don't qualify for any?
My guess is there's something filled out wrong on their form. But
Okay.
Wendy, do you remember questions that we were answering? No, cannot hear you.
Oh,
I know that we've had some clients in that situation, and Wendy's been helping field a ton of questions on that. So,
okay. Wendy, if you want to sign out and sign back in, that may fix your audio. Okay, and then
go ahead.
Well, so we have a couple of other questions, and I'm just going to ask this. So we have one person who works part-time and then freelances. So they work part-time, 25% of their income is from their part-time job and 75% is from their freelance. So I'm just scrolling through here. How does she get them to add her self-employed income? Like, can you basically apply for, if you're doing both, like if you part-time?
Yes.
So do you go through the regular process and get approved, and then you would file for the PUA claim on top of that?
That's a really good question. You work for both someone else. Yeah, exactly. You should have 2 claims then.
Okay.
And then are they still working part-time?
Are you, let's see.
So I'm looking at, if you have that guide for extended benefits COVID PDF open, I'm looking at page 8. And it says, if you work both for someone else and yourself over the past 15 to 18 months, select yes and report the hours you work for someone else. You'll report the earnings from self-employment as an independent contractor or for work with a business that does not report your wages and hours to ESD on the expanded benefits called a COVID PUA claim. Okay, so yeah, it does sound like there would be 2 separate claims there.
So it sounds like, Corey, go ahead and look at the PDF link. If you scroll up in the chat room, that PDF is available with what Luke was just reading about. And she said, or he, not sure, says they are currently not working for that part-time job. So they basically have lost all of their income. Sounds like that.
Okay, great. Wendy's back, I think. I don't know if her audio is.
I let her back in.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry. I know that dollar amount has to be that $1. So I agree that I think something is entered in incorrectly. But at the same time, I know that you need to keep doing those weekly claims because there seems to be a lapse in them getting it figured out as well. But if you're getting 0, I would say that there has to be something maybe entered incorrectly. And unfortunately, you might end up having to call them.
Yeah, Wendy made a good point. Even before you are totally in, you should submit those claims weekly. I believe it's on Sundays. Is that right, Wendy?
Yes. And that's further down the slides, but definitely almost as soon as you apply, the Sunday after you apply, start submitting the weekly claims.
Well, and they've also, because I'm in the same boat. I work part-time, I freelance part-time. So they're also recommending that if you can log in and do that at different kinds of hours because their system is just so taxed. So I did mine at like 5 a.m. this morning.
Yeah.
So, because I happen to wake up. But yeah, that's been more helpful because that first weekend when it opened up to freelancers to being able to apply, you couldn't even get into the system at all. So
yeah, totally. Yeah, none of these systems were set up for this volume, right? So when you're building any sort of a software, there's always like demand testing. You can kind of think of it like a water line or a sewer line. And on a regular day, no big deal. But we've literally flooded the internet with all of this traffic, and the infrastructure is just not built for this volume. And that's why things break. And it's really not built for this type of capacity, which is why we're experiencing so many of these issues.
So, and let me confirm one thing. When it shows you how much money you're eligible for, it's not going to include the amount of the additional $600. That just shows up. Is that correct?
I think it should show both. Wendy,
I
I
know
wonder
for
if
me
you
it's
know.
only showing the base that I would get every week.
From what I understand, it does not show that additional.
Oh, great.
It only shows
Perfect.
what you're actually going to get. So you should start, I don't know if Jill has already started seeing money yet and saw that. I mean, but yeah, it should, from what I understand, it only shows, like it would only show that 235, not the additional 600.
Yeah, that's what I figured, but I was curious. So,
Okay. He says no money yet. So hopefully,
Yeah.
Hopefully when the money comes in, that additional 600 will be there.
And if you're comfortable, do the direct deposit, because then it's just there.
It's so much quicker. Yeah.
So much quicker.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're entering the new world of, not only being able to do work totally virtually, but now being required to. And so some of those final holdouts, like I had to open a new bank account recently, and I was able to do it totally over the phone. So as bad of a situation as this is, I think there are definitely some things that are going to be improving in some ways. So, okay. So on the weekly claims, this is how you get paid. So after you first apply, go ahead and submit your first claim on that Sunday, even if you're not yet approved. And then you need to be submitting every week in order to get paid. And then, especially if you're earning money, go ahead and submit the fact that you had earned money that week. And then the subsequent week, if you have not earned money, then submit that information. Okay, so this is more tactical logistics on how to get your claims for the previous weeks that you didn't work. So once you've submitted one claim and then you're approved, then you can go in and apply for the previous weeks where you weren't getting any revenue that you still qualify for. So that was what I was talking about with the, it's not something that you, if you don't do it today, you're missing out on, where some of these other things are. So just make sure that you have some sort of records in place, and maybe that record is just a bank statement that doesn't show anything deposited, which again is, if you don't already have a separate business account, now is a wonderful time to do that, because then it very clearly separates out, this is my business account, there is no money going in here. Okay, cool. So as I mentioned, if you have money coming in, you should still submit the claims. And the bottom line again is your net profit. So it's revenue minus expenses. And expenses, when I'm talking about a sole proprietor or a single member LLC, do not include the pay to yourself. Right. I would continue your business as much as you can, as far as if you have work that you can do and billings you can do, I would go ahead and keep going there, and then just report it if you receive income. Okay, some common mistakes. Make sure you enter your name as it appears on your Social Security card. Make sure your date of birth is properly entered. I know a lot of this sounds super dumb and redundant, but it's just the easiest way to prevent a simple mistake. And then when you're on the job search question for self-employed people, select no. So this is optional. because of the Stay at Home, Stay Healthy initiative. And we, like I mentioned, would still encourage you to try and operate your business as legally and safely as you can. Maybe that means trying to set up a print shop to sell photo prints, or maybe that's trying to do consulting for other photographers. Maybe it's virtual workshops. Certainly there's lots of opportunities out there. Okay, so on section 2, when asked if you worked for a Washington employer, so if you only work for yourself, then choose no. If you work for both, and this is, I think, again, on page 8 of that PDF that has more info, but if you work for both someone else and yourself, then select yes. And then you'll report earnings from self-employment as an independent contractor on that expanded PUA claim. So then you would have the regular claim and then the PUA claim. And if you're able and available for work, put yes. So the context that Wendy has in here, which is helpful, the question is about you, not about the situation. Okay, so that's the slides that we have for you today. What I can do is also share some of the other PDFs and just kind of talk through those. I think that might be helpful. Otherwise, I'm going to assume that, make sure you have a Secure Access Washington account. Make sure that you're submitting weekly claims. Make sure that you get denied for a regular unemployment claim first, and then you will have access to the PUA one. Try, if you're having traffic issues, try really odd times of the day, like Kate did. And then same for phone calls. I think their hours are even extended. They know that people are needing a lot of help. And now we're far enough along here. I'm assuming that some of the traffic has died down a little bit. So you might have a bit of a better chance. And the key with any of this stuff, when it is just so tedious and redundant and not fun, is just be persistent with it. Just keep calling. Maybe that's the first thing you do with a cup of coffee in the morning, is just get on hold and try to continue some sort of normalcy while you're also trying to get a hold of them if you get stuck. So let me see here.
Emily, I've got a couple of questions I can
Sure.
while you're doing that. So someone is a single member LLC that files payroll. He says he stopped his payroll for now. Is he still eligible? How does this work for him? So would it just be the PUA claim?
So if you're a single member LLC, I'm hoping that means you're talking about employees who work for you and not for yourself, unless you're an S corporation. Because if you're a single member LLC and you're not an S corporation, you should not be on payroll. So I distracted myself. Can you repeat that question?
It says, I'm a single member LLC that files payroll. Where does that leave me? I've stopped payroll for now. So let's see. He files as an S corp.
Okay, good. So, great.
Apparently.
Exactly. So this is similar to the question we had toward the beginning, where somebody said, should I go off of payroll? And if you again have been negatively impacted because of COVID, your revenue is down, your net income is down, then yes, we would say stop paying yourself and then file through PUA. The really tricky stuff that comes with these, this is my favorite thing to do when I'm starting to talk about S corporations, is I have this book on S corporations that's that big. Okay, and this is just for 1 year. It's updated every year. So the reality is they're complicated because they're complicated, but if you run them right, then you can save a lot of money, right? And so when we're talking about being an employee or on payroll, with Washington, you are still considered self-employed as a single owner, shareholder, and active manager of your S corporation. You're still considered self-employed. So you should just stop paying yourself salary and then submit a PUA claim. for federal income tax purposes, when we file with the IRS, you are an employee. So it's confusing because it's complicated.
Okay, I'm going to follow up with this gentleman, Rich, who's still just trying to figure out if he's even eligible. He was the gentleman whose business hasn't been profitable, but he had leads going into, that would have happened this year, but were pushed into next year because of this. So he's still, like, he made no money last year. So he won't have those reports that said how much money he made from 2019 taxes. So he says he had about $28,000 in income, but his expenses were more. So should he even try? I mean, I feel like, should he try and see what happens? I mean, if he doesn't have, I don't know. I don't know how to answer this.
If we're assuming that he was operating at losses before paying himself, then I don't think he'll qualify.
Okay.
Because he doesn't really have any other option. I would go ahead and submit a claim on PUA, but I don't think that he's going to qualify.
Okay.
So there's a chance if he had a job previously, within the last 15 to 18 months, maybe that's where he's going to get qualification for that previous job.
Okay.
In Washington.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like perhaps try, but perhaps you may not qualify in that particular situation.
Yeah.
As Luke mentioned at the beginning of this, many of you guys might have, unusual situations, and because we're freelancers, we haven't always had access to this, and so trying to navigate it is probably a bigger challenge than any of us thought it might be, for sure. So, Luke, you had something else you wanted to share and talk about?
Yeah, happy to answer questions as they come up, but I just thought it might be helpful even to just skim through the PDFs, make sure they look familiar to you. And then I can also, let's see here. So this is the checklist of information that you would need to apply. And so I'll zoom in here just so you can see it. So I believe Wendy linked this. If not, she'll relink it. So this is something to keep handy just to kind of organize yourself before you apply.
Like, we're still not seeing it. We're still just seeing the keynote.
Oh yeah, you need to share the screen again.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Thanks. Yeah. Thank you. Zoom. Stop share. Thank you. Okay, here.
There we go.
So this is the checklist that they've put together for you. And it has some of those links in there as well that you can follow through on. So it's mostly information that we talked about before: social security number, work history for the past 18 months, employer names, addresses, phone numbers. All that information would be on W-2s that you had from 2018 or 19. Your bank account and routing information for direct deposit. Obviously, we're recommending to apply online. And then this is alluding to, like most Washington state agencies, ESD, Employment Security Department, uses Secure Access Washington. So again, that's really your first step here, is to get your Secure Access Washington together. So hopefully everyone has the link to this checklist. Anybody have questions just on this before I switch to the other guide?
Now's your chance. Any questions on the checklist and what you might need?
Cool.
Let's go ahead and go to the next one, Luke.
Okay. Super. So this is that guide, and what we did our best to do is really summarize this guide in that presentation and make it look a little bit less government-y. Sometimes that impedes the osmosis of learning. So here's the process. There are some FAQs that you can double check as well. Setting up your account, applying, and then you get the expanded benefit. And then we talked about submitting weekly claims. That's over here, that final step of submitting those weekly claims. Okay, so this is essentially some employers report hours to ESD. And so it's just saying that it's faster if there were no hours reported. Oh, this is a really good point. There are webinars. So there's actually another webinar tomorrow. Let's see, I can paste that link in here maybe. Tomorrow at 3 p.m., filing a new application for regular or expanded benefits. So that will probably be a chance to ask more specific information. I'm going to try and share this screen, chat. Here we go. Okay, so I'll share my screen to that link I just put out too. So you can see there is even one today at 2 o'clock on submitting weekly claims. And then tomorrow there's one on filing a new application. So that will give you, I'm hoping, more specific info and probably be the most up to date. That's probably, if you are stuck, like if you go through all your application tonight and it doesn't work, that's probably going to be your fastest way to get help. And it also looks like there are overview slides. So you may be able to actually even click on there when you register for these webinars. They often will send you links or slides that answer some of your questions that would be specific to you. So I'm gonna probably just stop there. Certainly, if we have other questions that I can't answer, I'm happy to. I know there's some questions that are still outstanding. Hopefully, you got some answers today and at least know where to go. So if you're having trouble with your login, that's more of a Secure Access Washington question. If you're having problems with your claims, then that's going to be employment security.
Okay, we have one more question in here from Jill. In the initial application, she wasn't sure how to determine hourly rates. She works for performing groups, paid per service off and on. She receives W-2s. So she estimated the rate based on how much she made and approximate hours worked. Is that the best thing for her to do?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So one of my favorite books, and also I think the best business book, and also for any of my advice I give here, is the 4 agreements. And so the 4 agreements, 2 of them are to be impeccable with your word, so just don't lie, and then just do your best, or is another one. So as long as you're not lying and doing your best, then it should be fine, you know. And that's a completely reasonable. I'm estimating how many hours I worked in. I know about what I made. That's totally reasonable for a rate.
Okay, does anybody have any final questions before we kind of wrap up for today? They're asking for your email, Luke, so you might get some emails.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I did confirm that it is .co. It is luke@timbertax.co. That was not a typo. It's not .com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful that you joined me today. I hope it was helpful, and I definitely empathize with how hard this has been, because we've helped so many of our clients work through this. General advice that I always give people is have that separate business account, have a separate savings account just for income taxes. Try to have bookkeeping set up. Ideally, have a bookkeeper. All of those things are really good foundational things when this stuff comes up, when you need to provide a financial report, an income statement, your tax return. If you need help with any of that, certainly email me. Also, typically, if you're wanting more support on something, what we often do, we'll have a quick call with Wendy, and then she'll try and slot my calendar in. I do have a calendar, but unfortunately, it's quite booked up. Wendy can usually chat with you a bit sooner and slot you in somewhere. So if something is going on that is urgent today, tomorrow, Saturday, I'm open for that. just need to reach out. You could also go directly to the website, timbertax.co, and just book a call, and that would be with Wendy first. Big things, if you made money in 2019, so net profit, and you are currently not making money, and you have not applied for PPP, you probably should. If you don't know what PPP is, that is your biggest homework right now, because what we've been working with clients on is get on unemployment for the period past, apply for PPP, Payroll Protection Program with SBA. The lender you'll probably want to use is Bluevine, bluevine.com. And if you get funded, as I've helped people get funded, I think within a day, like they get approved almost instantly and then funded. And that can be 2.5 months of your net income from last year. So if you made $100,000 last year, that's $20,000 of your of cash that you get. And then as long as you use 75% of it to pay yourself, that amount gets forgiven. The remaining amount is what we're helping clients figure out. But at the risk of overcomplicating it, if you don't know that you shouldn't apply for PPP, you need to find out, and you should apply today. It takes about 15 minutes, and you'll need your tax return. So very highly encourage you, if you've been negatively impacted and you made a profit 2019, apply for PPP.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Luke. So I do want to mention that we are working on a collaborative event in a couple of weeks with ASMP Northwest, Luke Frye, a local legal group that we've had host events here before, and an insurance guru. So that is going to be a conversation and around business and things you could do now to kind of prepare for the next phase of your business as things start to open up again, questions and answers and all that good stuff. So we're in the process of building that page and should have that up soon. Yeah, so, and you guys are answering the questions in the chat room.
Yeah, we did want to make sure to say, yes, you can apply for both the unemployment and PPP. You cannot be on them both.
Oh, we lost her mic again.
Yeah. She was just going to say, you can apply, just don't be on them both at the same time.
Okay. If we haven't filed for 2019 taxes, can they apply for PPP?
Sort of. You are going to be required to submit a Schedule C. So Schedule C is just the business income, and I'm assuming you're not an S Corp, your business income that's typically reported on your personal income tax return 1040. You can find a blank Schedule C at the irs.gov and then just search Schedule C for 2019. You can fill that out and submit it as a draft to get approved. We don't usually do that because unless we're doing the whole tax return, it's tough. But if you had your income statements, so your financials, then you essentially transpose those onto the Schedule C with some tax adjustments. Business meals are only 50% deductible, auto stuff, and obviously it gets complicated, which is why we work with people on that. But if you don't have your 2019 return done, you could fill out a Schedule C. Again, the key is just to do your best and don't intentionally mislead them. And if you're using estimates, make it clear that it's an estimate, round to 100 or 1,000. Don't try to make it look like you're estimating 1967 for an expense, because that could be considered misleading.
And Will from ASMP, who is one of the co-chairs for the ASMP Northwest chapter, just dropped in a link. There's a lot of resources available on the ASMP website, both the national website and the local website. So if you're looking for more information, not just on filing for unemployment, but other things that have impact in your business and resources, please check that link out. It's in the chat room right now. I think we're good to go as far as wrapping this up goes. So,
yeah, we could probably talk a lot longer, but
yeah, I know we could, but we all have other things that we have to go and do. So Luke and Wendy, I want to thank you guys for your time. We super appreciate it. Super grateful that you're able to join us today, and all of this information is very helpful. for those who definitely need it right now. So thank you again. I appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you all. We appreciate being able to help.
And for Glazers, again, my name is Kate. We are here for you during this time. Like I said, we're open for curbside pickup if there are items that you've been needing to get. Also, our website is open 24/7, so you can place orders online for shipping or pickup whenever's convenient. Look for more of these live sessions in the coming weeks. Just go to our website, glazerscamera.com/workshops. We'll get you to what's coming up next. So thank you, Luke and Wendy, and thank you guys for tuning in. Have a great day.